All right, we are live. Got the 49ers versus Jets game going on right now. We're going to be recapping what happened with NFL Week 1. I wouldn't be remiss, Sean, if I didn't spend a little bit of time remembering a true American hero, referring to Mr. Greedy.
Oh, of course.
The African penguin in the Maryland Zoo who died today. I just realized how disrespectful that is now that the James Earl Jones thing. Oh, man, I don't know.
We'll be fine. Mr. Greedy.
We are obviously rest in peace to James Earl Jones. I completely forgot that happened today. I wanted to talk about there was this penguin in the Maryland Zoo who died that fathered 200 descendants, and now it's way less funny now that I realize that.
I would say it's even funnier.
Maybe for you.
Here's what's impressive about Mr. Greedy, the penguin. Died at 33. Do you know the typical lifespan of penguins, Joseph?
I mean, it's definitely not 33.
15 to 20.
So my man was just slinging it so much that it just completely grew his life expectancy. Is that what I'm understanding here? Is that what I'm getting?
Magellanic penguins can live up to 30 years. That's the longest lifespan of any penguin. So even for the rarest, longest living penguin species, Mr. Greedy is still out kicking that coverage. And laying the wood also.
That is the complete key thing here. It's the laying the wood part. Yeah, RIP to him. Obviously, of course, RIP to James Earl Jones. I can't believe that I had that in the notes and thinking that was going to be one of the funniest opens that I could have had, and then remembered how disrespectful it is to juxtapose the two and to completely breeze past. Oh my God!
If you had not brought it up, I don't think anybody would have even noticed. I think it
just
could have been Mr. Greedy.
I noticed. Obviously, again, rest in peace to James Earl Jones. Completely ruining the opening tone of the show. A couple quick comments. Ron, my betting strategy spelled incorrectly for this year is to bet against the Giants since they traded Barkley and Carolina every week and include them in my college parlays, which I don't usually do. They are bad. Thanks for rubbing that in, Ron.
They're real bad, Ron.
That. Also, quick comment here from Azos. Giants fans generally think Daniel Jones is better than Kyler Murray. I would love to find the Giants fans that think that. I'm not that stupid. I'm hoping that the rest of us aren't that stupid, because if there was a way for us to end up with Kyler Murray and get rid of Daniel Jones and maybe do some sort of a swap, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Really?
Kyler Murray? Yes. He brings so much more to the table than Daniel Jones. Don't. After what we're about to talk about.
I wouldn't say so much.
Yes,
I would
he
say
does.
more to the table.
Yes, he
does.
I
wouldn't say so much.
He's also beaten them head-to-head in the times that they faced off with one another. We've got a lot to talk about here with NFL Week 1. Daniel Jones being dog-ass. We've got Baker Mayfield, who had an amazing game. Sean's Falcons, terrible in Week 1. Got beat by a kicker. All that coming up and more. We're just going to hit the break, and we will be right back.
And now, back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. And today we are going to be, I've said it 3 times now, a lot of craziness in Week 1. Specifically, it felt like the defenses kicked the crap out of the offenses. Nobody had a good day. Nobody's quarterback, except for a few. It felt like everybody somehow threw under 200 yards. I would love to know, and I'm surprised that some analytics goober didn't write an article about how this is one of the least performing passing days ever, or least performing passing debuts first week of the season ever in the history of the NFL. I'm surprised that didn't come out, because if you look at all these totals, nobody showed up. And if you bet against those totals at what website, Sean?
That would be BetOnline. You want to do all your sports wagering on BetOnline. I don't learn my lesson, because I went to BetOnline tonight and I put down a bunch of wagers on this Jets 49ers game. I waited until 30 minutes before kickoff, so I didn't get punished by the injury gods after hearing Christian McCaffrey was out. But I could have still tuned into Bet Online and figured out, you know why? They have every stat, they have every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games, so I can be well-informed. I can be a well-informed bettor. Doesn't matter how much I read, I won't listen to it. They think you know your stuff. Get on their 200 grand mega contest to pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here.
All right, I want to start us off talking about Daniel Jones and the performance that they had against the Minnesota Vikings. 28-6 loss to the Vikings. Sam Darnold had a massive first half and then kind of cooled off a little bit later on. But it's almost hilarious to compare these two circumstances of two different franchises and their quarterback situations. A stat came out today that I think sums up why Giants fans need to be over Daniel Jones. He threw a pick 6 in this game, had a terrible performance. He has officially now thrown more pick 6s than touchdowns since he signed the contract extension that was given to him. I believe that was in the offseason of, it was between the 2022 and the 2023 seasons when he got that contract. I don't know how much further the Giants need to see this thing play out. I know that they were considering looking into a quarterback this offseason. We saw it play out in Hard Knocks a little bit. But the evidence is there. The guy can't play. I have said this time and time again before he was given the contract. He does not have the natural instincts that a quarterback needs to win football games, to take his team to the next level. There are quarterbacks with worse rosters in the NFL that help their team perform and win on a week-to-week basis. And all I hear from Giants fans every single time I point out his horrid play, oh, the offensive line's bad. Oh, what receivers does he have to throw to? At a certain point, we need to look in the mirror and acknowledge the guy's not going to get it done. He's absolutely just not going to get it done. There's no more proof required for this.
One thing he did since the contract, before he did not have a beard, and now he does have a beard.
You know, he's bad and has a beard.
How did you feel about the Giants fans meeting him walking out of the gates, out of the stadium?
I did hear about that. Wait, what was the full context of that? It was just they met him out.
He was leaving the game, I think, walking to the players' lot, and a Giants fan was recording him. Daniel, you suck. We deserve better. You stink. You're bad.
It's a very New York Giants thing to do.
It seemed like a very upset Giants fan letting his frustrations be felt.
Look, don't go physically assault a player in the parking lot, but I don't think there's anything wrong with letting the guy know he stinks. If you saw him in public at a bar, I think the same thing's open for it's open season. I know that sounds like really cruel for me to say, but he's not good. We're telling him the truth. Play better. He's playing in the most critical sports market in all of sports. I don't know what he expects.
I would say,
or anyone should expect.
We're living in the era of the sensitive athlete, or the emotionally aware athlete. However you want to pitch that or spin it, it's an era where the athletes are always going to be favored in the public's eye because fans are menaces, and the recent discourse for games, especially online, isn't just, hey, here are my thoughts. It's who can overreact the worst. Crazy threats online, whether you laugh about it or not. This wouldn't happen when players were, had a second job, or there was no internet happening. It was left to the sports writers, the people that were credible, to pass the judgment. Not just unhinged people letting it fly on Twitter. This, I think, is something that would have happened before. People have met teams at the gates and yelled and showed frustrations. Yes. So you're playing in New York. You dropped a stinker. They should have beat the Vikings. They got embarrassed by the Vikings. The Vikings with Sam Darnold. That is ridiculous. The pick six was unfathomable.
This is why my frustration continues to mount. That is a Vikings team that quite literally just started from square one on their rebuild. They just started their rebuild.
Oh, yeah.
J.J. McCarthy would have probably put up the same stat total that Sam Darnold did in this game. I'm not asking for them to come out and win by some grand total. But the way that Daniel Jones takes them out of the game every single time he plays, it's continuous. It's unfathomable, as you talked about the pick that he threw.
It was, when you're backed up, I hate throwing. We yelled about it during the watch stream when Shedeur Sanders threw it to the far side when you're backed up on the goal line. Don't do that. Run it up the middle and wait for a punt, maybe run a tight hook on the inside, but throwing it laterally when you don't have that wiggle room to maneuver it is so dumb to me, and it's such a Giants call. And let Andrew Van Ginkel get up and look like Thor and take it back to the house.
Yeah,
Andrew Van Ginkel
of all people.
And I heard a great sports rant when the Commanders lost to the Dolphins last year, and Van Ginkel had 2.5 sacks, and I think he had a touchdown in that game also. He takes advantage of bad quarterbacks, and the Giants, I mean, brother, it's over. And him walking around with that money, with that extension, with one playoff win. We've seen bad quarterbacks get a playoff win before. They don't all get paid all the time.
No.
He was not worth it. It was a trigger-happy decision. And sure, 2023 didn't go how you thought it was going to go. But he's not worth the money. Eventually some team is going to put their foot down to their quarterback and say, yeah, we're gonna roll the dice again. We are not going to be fronting this to you to have us in purgatory for the next 6 years.
This is why I said when he was given the contract, he should have been given a prove-it deal. Everything that he did up until that point was...
Well, the prove-it deals are disrespectful to the players, and the owners don't, and the coaches don't trust, and it's now a toxic NFL environment.
I look at a perfect example of a prove-it deal that paid out, Baker Mayfield. I think that if you're, which we're going to get to in a second, if you're Daniel Jones... And if you're any quarterback that hasn't succeeded, that has one playoff win, as you pointed out, has not had big passing seasons, they were not the reason that they were successful back in 2022. It was because of Saquon, and it was because of the defense. And because of the position that they put themselves in with this Daniel Jones contract, I'd argue it definitely led to Saquon's departure. It definitely sent the message of where the priority was, which is the guy who's kind of just there, not the superstar who keeps your team afloat on a week-to-week basis. We're kind of talking ourselves in circles here, but...
Well, I mean, it's not like Saquon panned out for the Eagles already.
Shut up.
Could you imagine getting those dividends in week 1, the return on investment that quickly? I think a rational Eagles fan would, if you were asked the question, how many games would it take for Saquon Barkley to score 3 touchdowns? They'd probably say 4. They'd probably say Jalen Hurts will start running some in with his selfish ass. They'll start, maybe we get some to Goddard and A.J. Brown. 4 games. No. It took 1 game. It took 3 quarters, actually.
As much as that pains me, I'm glad that he's doing well. It still bothers the hell out of me. He ended up on a rival. But that was how you want to build the vision of your team, which is everything else is coming together, and you're bringing in veteran free agents who want to come play for you, and then you bring in the superstar running back. Saquon should not have been drafted 2nd overall when he was. It was during a draft where they probably would have ended up with Sam Darnold had they made the selection that was predicted by many. It's painful. It's unbelievably painful being a Giants fan and seeing the results of the performances of a guy that you just had that is top 3 at his position when he's healthy, top 2, maybe the best player at his position when he's healthy.
You know what hurt me so bad about the Giants week 1 loss? When I was taking my depression angry woman walk after my team lost, when I was walking around the streets in Hoboken, I saw tons of people in their Giants gear, and all of them, when they saw each other, they just kind of gave the
nod, yeah.
Again, I saw two kids smiling and laughing because I guess they didn't watch the game. One was in an Eli shirt.
What?
And they were
unacceptable.
And they didn't know. They don't know how bad it is. I'm sure their parents just said, "Oh, it was just one game. The Vikings are really good," and they didn't have a care in the world.
These kids are gonna kids like that.
They're gonna grow up in a cold, barren wasteland of football.
My kids are going to get the environment that every kid that you and I definitely got, which is when the team loses, the family team loses, everybody's in a bad mood for the rest of the day. The depression meal, I don't know what you're having for dinner, but everybody's in a bad mood. Let's get to another game, though. There is this insane juxtaposition that we have with Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. There were fans calling into Cleveland sports radio stations that the first thing off the top was comparing the passer rating of Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. We now get to live out and see this, that Baker Mayfield gets this new deal in the offseason. He looked really strong last year, led them to a playoff win, and he starts off the year going 24 of 30 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns in a week, as I pointed out at the beginning, where it felt like no quarterbacks exceeded 200 passing yards. He was one of the best performers of this week against a hapless
The Commanders will
team.
make a quarterback look good. They'll make a mediocre guy look like an all-pro.
Baker Mayfield continues to be a great example of why we should never give up on a quarterback who's doing good things, but hasn't fully gotten there yet, and try and reach and grab for the superstar, which is what they did with Deshaun Watson. And it came out today that there's another allegation against Deshaun Watson. It's disturbing, the civil suit that is being filed against him, the allegations. I don't know how, after the performance that he had in this game, where he had 45 passing attempts against the Cowboys and they lost 37-20 and he had 2 picks. I don't know how, one, and this is obvious, how you can look to the future and think that Deshaun Watson should finish out his contract. 2, start Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
There's no difference between the two of them. At least Jameis Winston's going to take shots.
Yeah. No. Here's the difference. Jameis Winston still has an arm. Jameis Winston has shown that he can throw a football.
Yeah.
Jameis Winston has shown growth in the NFL instead of a terrible plateau and then sharp regression that Deshaun Watson has shown. He looks, he doesn't look like a quarterback. It's crazy to see a guy that was
He looks
that
like
talented.
Tyler Van Dyke. Like he's playing like that.
I would rather have Tyler Van Dyke personally.
Sure.
Yeah, I know you would also. But Winston should be the starter from here on out. If the Browns had the balls to mortgage their future on them, they should have the balls to walk in and say, that was a mistake. We're done with this. We're going to eat the money. We're going to do what smart teams do when they know it's not working out, and they're just going to we're going to eat the money. Because the Browns have a great team. They have a fantastic offensive line. The defense is filled with studs, good wide receivers, good running backs, and the only position that's holding them back is the quarterback right now. And that could be fixed with the backup that they signed. So keeping Deshaun Watson as the starter is mind-boggling to me. And Mayfield, you know what? Talk about opposites. Mayfield starts off super cold. Watson starts out hot. One team, and then Mayfield starts going through troubles. Ships to Carolina, Siberia, basically. Then gets shipped to LA for a cup of coffee. Does good things, and then lands in Tampa Bay, who was just patient with the guy. Had a good offense and offensive line, and I'd love to talk about this Tampa Bay Bucs offensive line. They're stellar, and they bullied the Commanders on the interior all day. But Mayfield has evolved. He's shown what he can be. He's shown that he can be a competent guy that delivers the ball accurately. I'm in on Baker Mayfield all over again.
Here's the thing with Baker Mayfield, too, is such a side point. For any team that's in the situation where the quarterback that you drafted or brought in is not panning out, it now like really creates the false reality that you think that there's someone out there, that there's something out there that you can go get. There's nobody like that right now. But to talk about Deshaun's situation, you hit the nail on the head. This is not like they have Dorian Thompson-Robinson last year where he was just not really built to be a starter, but could be a quality gadget player / backup. This isn't like Joe Flacco, who this team was better with Joe Flacco running the offense.
He was the best quarterback they've had
Higher
there
floor.
in 5 years.
Not only is Deshaun Watson playing bad, but he's playing soft. It's one thing to be check down Charlie, make the really casual, light decision instead of being willing to stress a defense and take difficult throws and take these difficult shots to trying to fit into tight windows. It's one thing to do that. But to be bad at both things where you're turning the ball over and you're just trying to play as safe and as conservative as possible, there is no way that this thing can continue. Jameis Winston has been a guy who is, when he's been called upon, has performed well, and he's been on really awful teams. Awful teams.
Those Bucs teams were bad.
And the Saints team that he was on.
Yes, this is the best team that he's been on.
Talk about a guy who's a former first overall pick who has traits that has not had a good opportunity. Don't let the Baker Mayfield situation hurt you any longer. You have an opportunity in a way to redeem yourself. Give a former first rounder the chance. See what happens. There's nothing better that's going to happen with Deshaun Watson.
It almost feels like destiny at this point for it all to work out for Jameis like it worked out for Mayfield. Like when you lay out the situation like you just did. Okay, we couldn't handle having this first round pick in Mayfield. Maybe we learned from it. We built a better team when we were rebuilding, and now we have another guy who's competent that should be starting. God, I just want that to happen. I think if the Browns are good, it makes football better. When the Browns are a basement team, then the AFC North just stomp on them. All of the AFC gets shaken up. The Browns are a competitive team. They can take down top AFC teams if they have a guy that can pass the ball and keep them in games. It doesn't help that Nick Chubb is out, but Nick Chubb couldn't do it all on his own. If Nick Chubb was playing yesterday, it wouldn't have been different. The Cowboys defense was swarming. They were crushing Watson. Watson just made all the wrong decisions. And it almost feels like excessive what I saw online about Watson, but every time I watched him playing quarterback, they're right. The crazies on Twitter were right yesterday. You shouldn't be playing. He shouldn't be leading this team.
It's one of the few situations too where he gets benched and his career starts to kind of crumble, and it's like, oh man, that's tough. That's really brutal. No, this guy's a horrible person. Screw this guy. Everybody ganging up on Deshaun Watson is completely justified. F this guy. F him. Get him off the field. Put Jameis Winston in. I'm not saying that Jameis Winston wins you a Super Bowl, but the craziest part you're saying with it's better when the Browns are good. They have a really good defense. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they are letting themselves sink because of this bum, this horrible, horrible person who is just an utter bum, dog-esque quarterback who can't play and is a coward. So take him off the field. He shouldn't be on the field. You had talked about the Buccaneers offensive line. I heard you talking about it earlier. I heard you mention Wirfs and Cody Mock, but Graham Barnes awesome too.
But Brian Baldinger had a great breakdown on the Bucs offensive line. I watch all the stuff he does on the offensive line, and it is so impressive how the Buccaneers cultivate offensive line talent. They're never getting beat consistently. You never see Baker Mayfield constantly under duress. And Washington on the interior, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. They drafted Jerjon Newton.
Jerjon Newton.
And they get Fedarian Mathis last year, second overall pick. It's probably the deepest defensive tackle room in the NFL. They got worked. They got worked all day by a better scheme and a better offensive line. Why does Baker Mayfield got so much time? Because they're sliding right. They're moving. They're blocking. The Tampa's could be a force this year. It's week one. I know it is, and it's probably overreactionary because I didn't see Baker Mayfield throw a Baker Mayfield pick, but they could definitely be a force in the NFC this year.
I think they're going to win the NFC South.
I agree.
Also part of this game, though, or not this game, this conversation that we're having with the Browns, they played the Cowboys. Dak got his contract at the very last second. It kind of makes you wonder how close this was to being signed and coming through, because it seemed like there was really not any panic by Dak and how quickly this came together at the last minute. He ends up getting the $240 million deal. Yesterday, they played very defiantly on defense, but Dak, 19 of 32, 179 yards and a touchdown, which is nothing exciting. Goes in line with what I said. It felt like nobody threw over 200 passing yards, which is so freaking weird. It's the week of the defenses. He deserves the contract. That's that. At the end of the day, as hard as it is to find good quarterback play, if you can show up, your defense can play that well, and Dak can just go 19 of 32, there's a reason why he's getting paid. I don't want to hear the arguments of, well, he's not in that upper category. Why was he paid and now the most highest paid player in the NFL? He's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. He is above average enough and sometimes in that upper 10th category of the top 10 quarterbacks from time to time. He's good enough to have earned this contract.
Dak Prescott is at worst a B, at best an A minus. And
never be an A plus.
Never. I don't think he's ever going to be an A plus. But if you have a good defense, all you need is an A minus quarterback doing A minus quarterback things when you need him to do it. What did you think about? I mean, if you're a Cowboys fan, are you sick of Jerry Jones pulling stunts like this, waiting literally until hours before kickoff to announce that he's getting a new deal? Like, I would just be so fed up. Sure, I'm either happy or not that he gets paid. Besides the point, it feels like he's just distracting everything. If I'm in the Cowboys locker room all day, I feel like it's always a distraction.
Okay, I push back on this. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I think it's Jerry knowing that he can command the media cycle and can command everybody's attention talking about him. And he's taking advantage of it. He likes it when they come up to him and they ask him about the contract and what he thinks. And he knows. And Dak, when he responded to comments made by Jerry that were, I forget what they were, but they were kind of negative.
He said, I'm not worried about Jerry. Basically, I don't really take that to heart. That's your GM
Right.
and owner, also, by the way.
Because I think that they have they have a better relationship and they're on better terms than I think people realize. Is my point.
Yeah, that could have been said a little more tongue in cheek than how it just reads. I like an NFL owner to just be a quiet, tucked away angel investor, basically. If we need repairs for the stadium, here's the money. What do we need? Do we need new infrastructure for getting the food to people? Here's the money.
Yeah, but if you're paying all that damn money, you might as well have some fun with it.
I don't want my owner having any fun. I don't want my owner making football decisions. Do you like the Giants owner?
Well, John Mara is not outward; he's just an idiot.
Okay.
So not only is he mostly out of the public scene, but he's also really a terrible owner.
Seeing the years of Dan Snyder get involved, overly involved, overstepping, it has traumatized a lot of people that lived in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, where owners in our viewpoint just have to just stay away. Me, I love Arthur Blank. I would do anything for Arthur Blank. He's one of my favorite people in the world. Genuinely, I've never met him. I'll probably never get to meet him. If I did, I'd kiss the ring. I love Arthur Blank, but I know a majority of NFL fan bases don't feel that way. I would just prefer the owner to stay out the way, stay out of the media cycle. But Jerry can't help it because Jerry's ego is too big now.
Speaking of Arthur Blank and the Falcons, their atrocious performance yesterday against the Steelers. Kirk Cousins, who is the big free agent that they brought in, 16 of 26, 155 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Got dog walked by a kicker who also punted in the game. That was probably the most hilarious layer that was added to this, is that not only did he kick your ass on field goals, but he came out and booted a couple pretty nice punts because he had to step in and do that for their injured starting punter. I forget what the punter for the. Actually, I don't even know who the Steelers punter is because they brought in.
Was it the Georgia Tech kid?
No, they brought Presley. They brought in a new guy. They cut Presley, and I think Presley was competing for the 49ers job. But besides the point, special teams kicked your ass when you were supposed to be one of the better offenses, especially in the NFC, and the best in the NFC South.
We put up 10 points. That's not good. We let Chris Boswell have his way with us. 57-yarder, 55-yarder. Oh, we'll make it easy for you this time. 47. Another 50-yarder. Just letting it happen right before half. Atlanta is embarrassing. Kirk Cousins is so obviously not recovered from his injury. It couldn't have been more obvious. Let me tell you what Field Yates pointed out about this unserious game plan. Zach Robinson, I think, is a good OC. I think he was good with the Rams, could scheme up plays, made Puka Nacua a star, was able to get different pieces involved. The Falcons were in pistol or shotgun from Field Yates and I guess ESPN Stats Info. Everyone needs a page. They're in pistol or shotgun on 96% of their snaps today. Of the 22 snaps out of shotgun, the Falcons had 0 designed runs. Of the 26 out of pistol, the Falcons ran the ball 81% of the plays. Tip your hat more. Make it more obvious that Kirk can't move. And I saw Squid Billy on Twitter, producer at the Score down there, talking about, did you notice that the one time that Kirk Cousins rolled out, he threw the touchdown? He didn't roll out. He did 2 steps to the left and found a wide open Kyle Pitts. So the discourse and the pearl clutching and the white knighting for Kirk Cousins being completely healthy, that's bullshit. That is so errant analysis for me. You saw what he did. He got the ball on the snap. He took one turn and they just tried to deliver a slant. It was a bad scene. He's not comfortable on that leg, on that foot, on the Achilles. It's a mess. And this is why they shut down Michael Penix Jr. It's exactly why they couldn't have him playing, because the chants for him are going to be loud in week 4, because Atlanta's going to drop to the Chiefs. They're going to drop to the Eagles. They'll be 0-3 going into week 4. It's going to be a mess. Joe, also, both those games are in prime time.
They have the Chiefs next?
They have the next 2 games. are the Chiefs and the Eagles. Let me make sure I have this.
I don't think they play the Chiefs next. I think the Bengals have the Chiefs next.
Okay, yeah, the Eagles next week on Monday Night Football.
And then the Chiefs.
Then the Chiefs. Then we know, and then the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. So everyone was super excited about Kirk Cousins coming in and having this fun offense with Bijan Robinson. It won't matter if he can't move. Oh, and then also 2 weeks later after the Chiefs, they're on Thursday Night Football again. This is going to be a treacherous month of watching football for me in my life.
This forever plays into the conspiracy theory that we had in the preseason. And look, there's plenty of time when guys come back from injuries. There's usually there's not a little rust. There's serious rust that needs to get knocked off for these guys to get comfortable. He's in a new system, new receivers, change of scenery, all of that stuff. It's gonna take him some time. I'm sure that there is a recovery period that by like week 8 or week 9, things could be. I'm not saying that they will be, could be flowing, and the offense is doing better, and the Falcons are head-to-head competing with the Buccaneers to win the NFC South. But at the same time, like, it's pretty clear why they didn't let Michael Penix go out there in the preseason. Because if he balled out, which he was going to do, he played really well in the first game, and if he balled out in the other 2 games, it would have been unbearable for Raheem Morris to deal with the criticism of why isn't this kid starting? I think he's more ready than people realize. I'm not saying you do it now. I'm not doing the start him, like this is BS, like Kirk Cousins is cooked. I'm not going to do that. But if by like week 12, the offense is, let's say, in the bottom third, statistically in most categories,
It's very possible.
I would consider making the switch. I absolutely would.
I am trying my hardest to stay patient as a fan. I genuinely am. I was driven up a wall yesterday. I've calmed down a little bit since, but the fact that that Atlanta is trying to make it like not as obvious as it is, and if you're just a little bit plugged in, you can tell exactly what's happening there, and you know exactly why he was shut down, Michael Penix Jr. Then it's infuriating because they're treating you like you're dumb and like you don't know what's going on with the team. I know what's going on. I know why they're holding him back. I don't like teams losing out of pride, out of a bad decision, opting to lose because you can't take the difficult pill is infuriating because you could do better and you're choosing not to.
Well, I don't know why this like makes me think of this. It's like the college coaches who, when they're getting their asses kicked, make play calls that are going to run the clock out more so that the blowout doesn't look as bad. The NFL is rampant with this, where there's just general decisions that happen that you're trying to cover your ass as much as possible. And I'll never understand it. The coaches who are the most free and the most willing to ignore all of that are typically the best. Bill Belichick's perfect example of that.
I'd say
Kyle Shanahan, perfect example.
I'd say McVay's great at that.
Yes.
And I'd say the Rams front office. Hey, we are going to take a shot at ourselves. Screw all these draft picks. We're going to win a Super Bowl and be a winning team consistently. I like that. That was a risk that they took. Take a risk. God, it's infuriating being treated with kid gloves by the team that you love.
Well, we had a perfect example of what happens when you start a rookie quarterback and win a football game is the Bears. They beat the Titans. Very close game, 24-17, I believe it was the final score. I thought I wrote it down. Did you come in here and like delete the scores that I wrote down or something?
No, I didn't delete any scores.
I thought I wrote that down. 24-17. Caleb Williams ends up losing a total of 29 yards on scrambles, has a 55.7 passer rating in this game. They did not score a single offensive touchdown. Caleb Williams' stat line was abysmal. What was not abysmal was the defensive performance that the Bears had, where they completely embarrassed Will Levis, especially that late interception that helped them take the lead. Their special teams was incredibly on point. They had a perfect game on 2 phases of the football, but they did not play well, obviously, offensively. First of all, this is a good example of if you got the rookie out there, you can still win football games if everything else is really good. I think my only real takeaway from this is I feel pretty confident about predicting that the Bears could be a wild card team and will be a wild card team. Caleb Williams is the type of guy who still getting comfortable. Once he gets comfortable and it's midway through the season, which happens a lot with rookie quarterbacks,
oh yeah,
this team's going to be good. If the defense can play that well to win them a game to kick the crap out of Will Levis and the Titans that badly that they can win it themselves. Once Caleb gets rolling, and he's going to, he is not bust material. He does not have bust material on him right now after 1 week to say that. I just hate all the slander that's being thrown out there about Caleb, that everyone's saying like, oh, this is terrible. This is what we get in the debut. What do we expect? It's his first ever start. He won. That counts for something.
The Titans have a great defense also. They are one of these teams that always keeps it tight if your offense isn't performing. Levis was really shaky in this game. Pollard was good for Tennessee. But I'm with you on Caleb Williams being bust-proof at this moment. I don't mind seeing him go out and take some lumps. It'll give him something to learn from. It's not just going out there lighting it up and thinking your shit doesn't stink. He's going to have to learn, evolve, mature, do everything that every other college, NFL quarterback coming in from college with has to do. Keep him on track. And the Bears built a really good team. Why does it feel different? Because it is different. The Rome Odunze injury, that's not great.
Yeah.
That is not a plus for Chicago. But what is a plus is that Chicago, over the last 4 years, maybe 10 years, would have loved to lose this game. They would have been dying to lose this game to Tennessee 17-10. 17-13, back-breaking pick at the last second. Caleb Williams wasn't at least a detriment turning the ball over. That's bar none. If my rookie quarterback is going out there, no turnovers, no picks, I'm happy. I can be comfortable with the idea that he will get better. If he goes out and starts spraying the ball everywhere, a la Zach Wilson, that's when the anger starts coming from the fans.
I also, like, what it makes me feel like is that they've kind of have this is going to sound so stupid to say, but it feels like they almost have like a secret weapon. We know who Caleb Williams, we know who he is as a player. If you're able to gut out wins like this by your defense playing this well and knowing that eventually your quarterback is going to get comfortable and is going to get through the growing pains, that's going to make you dangerous. It's a hidden card that you have that nobody knows that's willing to admit that you have. I think most NFL teams are willing to accept, hey, at any point, Caleb Williams could figure it out against us this week and could light us up for 4 touchdowns and look unstoppable.
I would also say Chicago's chances of making the playoffs definitely increased in week 1.
Jordan Love going down.
Love going down. The Packers are going to be in a tough spot. Malik Willis is not really a great NFL quarterback, to put it as nicely as I can. The Vikings are going to eventually implode. I think Detroit is legit. But the Bears can be scrapping for that wild card game. I think it's a very legitimate chance that they're deep in the mix in December, which, as a fan, that's all you should be rooting for. Don't let my team be out of it by October. Don't let my team have ruined my entire playoff experience by losing 3 out of 4 in November. Let me be in the hunt in December. That's all I want. That's all anybody should ever expect or want for their team.
It does make me ask, like, what else does this Bears team need to help them get over the hump? It feels like the only thing that was holding them back was Caleb's performance and just generally the offense not being as productive as it could have been.
I'd like to see a couple big DeAndre Swift games.
Yeah, oh my God, he didn't do anything. He didn't do dick.
He's at a really weird, what do you think that is? His NFL path has been really weird, because in Detroit, when he touched the ball, it felt electric. In Philly, he had 1,000 yards last year, and I think a good amount of touchdowns. And he keeps on getting traded. He's just good enough to be a starter, not good enough to be the guy. He's always a trade piece, which is these guys in the NFL that are at that level. It's so weird to kind of track how their evolution goes. And now he's on a good Bears team, but I don't think he's going to end up being a key player down the stretch.
And maybe they're a candidate to try and go after and trade for a running back. I don't know who would be on the market, but
Devontae Freeman. He was tweeting yesterday.
Well, I mean, okay, somebody who's playing.
God, I would nab somebody off the Jets running back.
It would probably be someone like a bad team that's got like a good running back that's like got 2 years left on his deal. Like, I don't know who that is.
I think
off the top of my head.
If the Jaguars implode, like, give me Tank Bigsby, maybe.
I don't think they're going to implode, but Tank Bigsby did play well. That was a funny discourse this offseason where like everyone was so mad to consider that Tank Bigsby could have a big role for the Jack. Did you see that on Twitter?
I saw. I heard the fantasy footballers talking about Tank Bigsby a lot this offseason.
You listen to that show?
Every now and then. In August.
I won't consume fantasy football content. I'd rather just be blind and dumb. My team put up 70 points this week.
That was more for research purposes because they're number one in August. I just had to hear.
You were doing
what is making them number one? Like what is? I actually enjoyed that they had some production involved with the show. You know, they had segments, they had some music coming back from break. I guess they talked about being live, and I think if you're going to a live event for a fantasy football show, I don't know what fan that is. I don't know how big of a fan you have to be to do that. To watch guys talk about PPR versus
could not be me
versus 0.5 PPR.
Could not be me. Quarterback who was a former first overall pick who had a horrible debut this year. Bryce Young, 13 for 30, 160 yards, 2 interceptions. Walloped by a Saints team that I thought was going to be crappy this year.
They still can be. The Panthers are also tragic.
I can't believe I took Panthers +4. They didn't even play them close. Like the game was over after the first quarter.
It wasn't even remotely close.
One of the bigger upsets that I can remember recently in an NFL game. I don't want to jump down the Bryce Young as a bust commentary. I just don't. I think it's way too soon and unfair to do to the kid because he is just in such a horrible situation. New head coach who had Marcus Freeman vibes. You know, he's a very good looking dude, very good looking dude, but looked like he was just kind of enjoying that he was wearing a tight shirt a little too much. Do you know the whole story with him? Like something that like he cheated on his wife or something that happened. Yeah, he like cheated on his wife and his wife made him like publicly apologize or something like that.
What?
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up in a quick second. I want to double check that. A whole weird thing with Canales, but I can't go down that path that Bryce Young is like cooked, that he's done. A lot of people were jumping to that conclusion. Is there a possibility he ends up on that Baker Mayfield trajectory where they get impatient and they find a way to move him and they bring somebody else in, kind of like the Deshaun Watson situation? Sure, there's certainly a possibility of that happening, and I would expect that he's good enough to recover. But I just feel so bad for him, man. Like, this has nothing to do with him.
Yeah, you got to feel bad for him. He's 5'9", he's 115 pounds. It's tough. It was going to be tough.
115 pounds?
Dude, he got sacked, and the defender for New Orleans, I think, threw him a clean 5 yards. And he slid on the ground like he was 115 pounds. And you're the big draft guy. You're one of the big draft guys that I know. This deal between the Bears and the Panthers, I think, has the potential to be the most lopsided draft trade ever. I think in a couple years we could be looking at this like this is where the worm turned for Carolina. This is why they have won 3 games in 5 years. They could have a defeated season coming down the pike. And the Bears could be a juggernaut eventually.
Well, this is why that's where like we need to come from why he was so screwed. He was placed into this situation where he's all they have. He's all their savior is. There is no one else coming to save this team.
I thought drafting a first-round defensive tackle and Derek Brown was supposed to save the team.
He might be done for the season.
Yeah.
The issue with mortgaging your future for a guy who's not even like an otherworldly talent, just a really good prospect, is now you have no pieces to build around him. It's the Justin Fields situation is the most recent one that's so quick that comes to mind. Trying to trade up and go and get these guys never pans out. It very, very rarely pans out. The perfect situation that nobody is able to attain is the Chiefs situation where you have a sitting player, you can bench the rookie and then start him in his second season and then move on and get capital for trading the veteran. But for him to have what was already one of the worst rosters in the NFL, to then that team not having enough picks to go and get receivers and to not be enough of a free agent destination to bring in any premier names, they're going to be bad against this year. Bad again this year. no one is going to want to show up to help this team improve as a free agent. Nobody will.
It's not a destination.
No.
It's not. It's the island of misfit toys. It's where Miles Sanders level players go. Deontay Johnson goes. Adam Thielen, after his prime, goes. And a bunch of guys on defense that are basically still trying to make the NFL. That's what the Panthers feel like. Everyone talks about, is the UFL going to become a feeder program? No. The Carolina Panthers are going to become the feeder program. You're going to have some film of these guys playing defense, and they could be like the Oakland A's, where they're so bad, no one wants to go there, and then they just start getting, if they have any good players, trade deadline, all right, let's go to Carolina. Maybe we'll just help them rebuild through the draft, and we'll get one of their 3 stars.
It's 1 week, but I mean, I would start shipping pieces, man.
That is
seriously, get anybody who has like a contract that you don't think's coming back. Just start getting back as much draft capital as you can. I just don't know where this team goes because it's Bryce Young, who nobody would want to admit this, is the only bright spot. I don't know where else you look and say like that's a promising player on this team. It is a horrible, terrible roster. There is zero chance that Bryce Young can succeed in this situation. There's none.
Yeah, you got J.C. Horn, who could be off the. Yeah, he could. They'll try to keep him. Why? If I'm J.C. Horn, why would I want to stay in Carolina?
Yeah.
I want to go to a contender.
And he's been unhealthy and inconsistently healthy.
I agree, but he's talented.
Mm-hmm.
I would want him on a good free agent deal. I'd be happy with that. But no, I'm starting to think through the roster. Who are their linebackers? Who are their edge pieces? They lost Brian Burns. They don't keep their talent. It's not a premier destination.
I almost forgot about the Brian Burns trade this offseason. God, the Giants didn't even need to do that, and they just did it. Talk about not reading the room, but
why can't they, with Thibodeau, Lawrence, Burns, why can't they get that defense?
Well, they played a pretty good defensive day. They gave up 6 points on an interception that wasn't their fault. It was the dopey idiot that's playing quarterback back there.
Yeah, but it's Sam Darnold.
By the way, I looked up. So David Canales wrote a book, and in the book, he basically detailed his infidelity with his wife, and then it talked about his addiction to porn and alcohol.
Is he okay?
Canales also described in the book the addictions he once had to both pornography and alcohol. He also wrote about that he no longer has any of these issues and that he stopped drinking completely. That he and Lizzie have resurrected what is now a thriving marriage. The couple is, that's a weird situation.
This book is either super sad or super based because you
should have read that over the offseason.
You could look at this book.
I don't think it's based. I don't think there's anything that can be based about that.
I think no matter if you have a point in your life where you have to write a book detailing your exploits, I think it's kind of based regardless. Even if you said,
you're kind of getting
getting
forced to do it because your wife is...
I was so out of control. I was such an alpha that I have to detail it in writing so I don't do it again. I'm kind of on Team Canales here for being such an animal that it's led to this.
A guy who was not an animal in the booth was Tom Brady.
Oh, there we go.
I saw some weird reactions to Tom Brady's debut in the booth, and a lot of glazing. A lot of patting on the head. Tom, that was great. Good job. Tom, that was so good. That was really interesting, the way that you said those things really blandly and robotically. I said this when this deal was announced.
Yeah.
He was not going to be a good guy in the booth. And sometimes when you have color commentators that are new, you can hear that they're kind of still figuring it out. But one thing that's always evident, this isn't football. This isn't a rookie quarterback who's like, he missed that read and he'll figure these things out. You either have it or you don't. It's broadcasting.
Yeah.
You either have the energy, you have the intent. You can't get coached up on this. He might know more than everybody else. There's no improving here. He stunk. He was boring. He had no energy. He had this weird, awkward cadence where he would stop and then he would continue, and then it sounded like he was trying to do a news broadcast in the middle of upstate New York, in the middle of nowhere, that some small local guy would be doing. He has no juice. Should not be in that booth.
No, it was very off-putting at times when he would jump in and out of the conversation. It was kind of like maybe his timing with Burkhardt gets better, where
Yeah, that's
Maybe
one area
let's
could
get,
improve.
let's just get a tap. Okay, this is when, and I feel like at times Burkhardt you could almost hear him be like, okay, it's about to start. Play's about to start. My turn. So the turn taking there was interesting. And also, it's not like Tom Brady going on Colin Cowherd's show, where Colin Cowherd is just saying, hey, Tom Brady, can you just tell me about Tom Brady and what you think about this? That's different. That's answering questions.
He's great at that.
Yo, he's fantastic at answering questions. But on the fly description was rough on the first time. And Jimmy Trania put this out, I guess, for Sports Illustrated. He's doing some Q&A. He talked to Al Michaels, and Al Michaels said about Tom Brady's debut, outstanding coming out of the gate.
He didn't listen to the goddamn broadcast. He didn't listen to a word of that broadcast.
Had a nice flow with Burkhardt.
Stop.
I found it to be a very comfortable listen.
No. What?
Al Michaels.
Huh? He didn't listen to that broadcast. Or his hearing is going.
That is rough. That's just a lie. Why is Al Michaels protecting Tom Brady right now?
What is he gonna say? He stunk?
No, he could coach speak it. Yeah, I think Brady, when his insight to the game is so unique, and once he can tap into that,
that's true.
Then he could be a great broadcaster. Not 3 straight lies. Outstanding out of the gate, lie. Nice flow, lie. Found it very comfortable to listen, lie. Those are 3 lies.
Look at that chemistry we just had right there. It's better than anything that Tom Brady had in the booth.
You're killing me, Michaels. I find him to be a voice of reason, even though he's a maniac that eats grapes and junior mints during the broadcast.
If I'm Greg Olson, though, who got bumped, I would be livid, absolutely livid, listening to what was one of the worst color comment. That sounded like I was listening to a high school broadcast of a game.
They put him on the A team. The A team.
And here's one of the things too that always gets forgotten. We're younger. We're in the younger generation. A lot of elite premier players get plugged right into the booth, and a lot of them stink. Just because we love a player does not mean that they make a great radio host, a great podcaster, a great color commentator. It does not mean that it translates. You can be great at one thing and not another. And it's why a lot of times we see the B-level players are usually the best broadcasters. They're not translatable. It is an innate, rare skill to know how to convey messaging with excitement, vigor, and attention to detail.
Comfortability.
And do it rapidly. And he doesn't have any of those things. The one I always think of, my dad was telling me this, Joe Montana, perfect example, was put in the booth. And my dad would always tell me, Joe Montana stunk in the booth. He was terrible.
How could Joe Montana stink? That's how everyone in the meetings would sound. How could he stink? He's just not comfortable. He's not doing it right. He's not comfortable being in this part of the spotlight. He's a big, dumb athlete that likes to throw the ball far. So that's what some of these guys are. They're not all perfect orators. Jeff Teague is a much better, storyteller than he was ever a basketball player. There's rarities when it comes to this broadcasting thing. But like the Jason Witten experiment was awful. I think back to some of the guys at ESPN always tried out. Just leave it to the pros. Let it just be Tessitore and Riddick in the booth. That's all I've ever wanted from their broadcast. I don't need a bunch of players in here mucking it up, stammering and stumbling. It makes it messy for me. It feels forced. If you're actually listening to the game, you want it to be relaxed and informative. It was neither yesterday during that Browns-Cowboys game.
No, hopefully he improves. I am not holding out any hope. Any final thoughts before we close out here?
I think I'm just about good on my final thoughts this week.
We're going to be back on Wednesday, 8:30. Subscribe. Don't miss out. Drop a comment below at Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. What's the Hackbag phone number if anyone wants to leave us a voicemail for the Friday midday lunch break show where we answer mailbag questions and play voicemails?
That phone number is one in our Twitter bio, and I'll give it to you right now. 201-834-4308. 201-834-4308.
Do we get any weird phone calls?
We got another one that I have not scanned yet. So
okay, I want to look at that after this we finish. We're going to play that on Friday, folks. We'll talk to you later.